there are very few airplanes up there. In the U.S., there's a lot more traffic, and I wonder, has the shutdown just not gone far enough in the U.S.? Because it doesn't seem nearly as sincere as the shutdowns we're looking at in Spain, in Germany, now in the U.K.
Well, if you take a look at total global air traffic, looking at our data, it's down about 60%. But I think you're right. It has been put into place more rigorously in Asia and in parts of Europe. There's talk about doing that in the U.S., but you also have that, the pockets of the outbreak are in very different parts of the United States, very concentrated in this area, but then you've got the West Coast and other places. So they haven't done a major shutdown of this. But if you look at the whole trends globally, it's off about 60%. And that is weighing on oil prices as well.
Yeah, it certainly is. Thank you so much for joining us, Joyce Chang, Chair of Global Research at JP Morgan Securities. It's been really good to speak to you. In what has been obviously a very difficult start to the month, and in terms of the equity picture today in Europe, it's been a very slow start. US Stock 600 gaining just 0.25% right now. And Joyce was mentioning, Matt, oil prices. So we see a big rebound, up 8% more, almost the 9% for WTI and Brent crude futures. But that's largely because China's diving in there to buy up a lot of oil, given the drops.
Yeah, why wouldn't you? I mean, if you don't have to deal with congressional approval, go ahead and pick it up on the cheap, right? I just want to point out, as we get closer to the U.S. Open, you still see positive futures there, 1.8% up on Dow Jones, S&P, and NASDAQ mini futures. And if you want to hear more from Joyce, she's coming up on Bloomberg Surveillance, next on London DAB, on Sirius XM. It's Daybreak.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
The sports world is full of inspirational stories of heroic figures. It also has its fair share of shady characters. For detailed retellings of the darkest sagas in sports, explore TuneIn's documentary podcasts, like 30 for 30's The Sterling Affairs, about the scandalous life and times of the former Clippers owner, Donald Sterling, and Gladiator, which follows Aaron Hernandez's transformation from Super Bowl star to convicted murderer. For these and more, search sports documentaries on the TuneIn app.
Of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio.
Live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studios, this is Bloomberg Daybreak for Thursday, April 2nd, 2020. Coming up this hour.
COVID-19 cases in the U.S. surged past 200,000 as deaths in New York and New Jersey double in just 3 days.
Difficult days are ahead for our nation. We're going to have a couple of weeks that are going to be horrific.
U.S. deaths near 5,000 as global infections approach 1 million.
President Trump says he's looking at hazard pay for healthcare workers during the coronavirus pandemic. Plus, New York's mayor calls for more ventilators. I'm Michael Barr. More ahead.
I'm John Stashower in sports. The Brooklyn Nets players who tested positive are now free of coronavirus symptoms. The latest sporting event to be canceled was Wimbledon.
That's all straight ahead on Bloomberg Daybreak. On Bloomberg 1130 New York, Bloomberg 99.1 Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 106.1 Boston, Bloomberg 960 San Francisco, Sirius XM 119, and around the world on BloombergRadio.com and via the Bloomberg Business app.
Good morning, I'm Nathan Hager.
And I'm Karen Moscow. U.S. futures are rebounding from yesterday's 4% loss for stocks. We're coming up to 5:01 on Wall Street. And we check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures up 46 points this morning. Dow futures up 403. NASDAQ futures up 129. The DAX in Germany is up 1/3%. CAC in Paris up 0.5%. FTSE 100 up 0.6%. 10-year Treasury down 7/32, yield 0.60%. Yield on the 2-year 0.22%. NYMEX crude oil up 8.4%, up $1.70 to $22.01 a barrel. COMEX gold up 0.6% or $9.10 at $1,600.50 an ounce. The euro 1.0918 against the dollar. The yen is at 107.33. Nathan.
And Karen, we begin this morning with more grim rhetoric from the White House.
Difficult days are ahead for our nation. We're going to have a couple of weeks starting pretty much now, but especially a few days from now, that are going to be horrific.
The Pentagon is looking to provide as many as 100,000 military body bags for potential casualties. Meantime, President Trump is considering stopping flights from New York and other cities where the outbreak is most concentrated.
That is a calculation that we're looking at right now. We're looking at it very strongly.
No word on which cities would be affected or what the scale of any restrictions would be. The president says he's wary of any move that would further harm the airline industry.
The president also fielded questions on China at last night's briefing. The press conference came hours after a Bloomberg News exclusive showing Beijing's numbers on the coronavirus outbreak are fake.
The numbers seem to be a little bit on the light side, and I'm being nice when I say that, relative to what we witnessed and what was reported.
U.S. intelligence officials tell Bloomberg News a classified report shows China concealed the extent of the outbreak in its country. Sources say Beijing's public reporting on cases and deaths is intentionally incomplete. This morning, China is refuting that report. It says the government acted openly and transparently, and the report is an attempt to shift blame.
Here in the U.S., cases of COVID-19 now number 216,000 as deaths approach the 5,000 mark. In New York alone, fatalities are near 2,000. For the very latest, we're joined live by Bloomberg's John Tucker in New York. Good morning, John.
And good morning, Nathan. Deaths in New York and New Jersey have doubled in 3 days, and the outbreak in the region will likely be longer than initial estimates. That's according to New York Governor Andrew Cuomo.
What we're looking at now is the apex, top of the curve, roughly at the end of April, which means another month of this.
New York State has 83,000 reported cases. In New York City, at least 1 in every 200 people is infected. Across the country, about 1 in every 1,500 has the virus. In New York, I'm John Tucker, Bloomberg Daybreak.
All right, John, thank you. In New Jersey, cases now number more than 22,000. The state reported 3,500 new infections yesterday, though that doesn't capture the full extent of the outbreak. Only those with symptoms are being tested. We spoke with New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy.
The most aggressive set of steps we took were a week ago Saturday, so that's 11 days ago. Some of these testing results that we're getting were from specimens that were collected 8 to 10 days ago. So we're not going to have a real handle on the impact of the very aggressive social distancing probably for another week or so.
Governor Murphy warns New Jersey will soon need more space to store dead bodies. He says they may resort to using refrigerated trucks to house the deceased.
California is third for infections across the country, closing in on 10,000 cases, and the number of intensive care patients is increasing across the state. We get the very latest from Bloomberg's Ed Baxter in San Francisco.
Governor Gavin Newsom says day to day there has been an over 16% increase, but he says the state is getting close to meeting the needs.
We're preparing for a 2/3 increase in our hospital bed capacity in this state.
He says the surge is still coming in the next several weeks, but that he very much hopes that the health system can be prepared. In San Francisco, I'm Ed Baxter, Bloomberg Daybreak.
All right, Ed, thank you. The pandemic continues to ravage the economy, and today we get fresh numbers on Americans lining up for unemployment benefits. The government issues data on weekly jobless claims at 8:30 a.m. Wall Street time. And here with more is Bloomberg economics correspondent Michael McKee.
Look for a record number of Americans filing for unemployment benefits for a second week. Last week saw almost 3.3 million. The darkest prediction for this week from economists is for that to double. Given the speed with which the coronavirus has hit the economy, the claims release is seen as perhaps the most timely report on what's happening in the labor market. Friday's jobs report, on the other hand, will only show the level of payrolls through the week of March 12th before state economies began to shut down. Michael McKee, Bloomberg Daybreak.
All right, Michael, thanks. So how high will the unemployment rate go? We asked Federal Reserve Bank of Boston President Eric Rosengren.
It's quite likely by the end of this quarter that we'll see an unemployment rate that's probably going to be north of 10%.
The Fed has slashed interest rates, boosted its bond buying program, and announced emergency lending measures. Now it's working on a new loan program for small and medium-sized businesses. But Rosengren says it may be weeks until that help arrives.
The Main Street facility is still in the design phase. It's a complicated facility to appropriately scope, so I think it's still going to be another couple of weeks.
And there could be more help on the way. Boston Fed President Eric Rosengren says there's still room for the central bank and Congress to stem the fallout from the coronavirus outbreak.
And futures this morning are higher, with S&P futures up 43 points, Dow futures up 380, and NASDAQ futures up 118. The 10-year Treasury down 7/32, yield 0.60%, and the yield on the 2-year 0.22%. NYMEX crude oil is up 8.6% at $22.06 a barrel. And straight ahead, we have the latest world and national news, and this is Bloomberg.
Okay, Karen, thank you. It is 5:07 on Wall Street. Michael Barr is here with more on what's going on around the world. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Nathan. The number of coronavirus deaths in New York State more than doubled in 72 hours, close to 2,000. In New York City, Mayor Bill de Blasio says hospitals still need critical care equipment, including hundreds of ventilators and protective gear.
We still need 3.3 million N95 masks to come in by Sunday to prepare us for the week ahead. We need 2.1 million surgical masks. We need 100,000 isolation gowns. These are big numbers for sure, but they are reachable numbers, but we have to make sure it happens in time.
More than 1,300 deaths are in New York City, and now another grim chapter. EMS crews are now being told cardiac patients who cannot be resuscitated in the field must be declared dead. New York City ER Dr. Darian Sutton says the new order is terrifying.
As a doctor in New York and also as a New Yorker, I have family that live here. And so when I hear things like that, I obviously get afraid and fearful for the livelihood of my family.
President Trump says he is looking at hazard pay for healthcare workers as they deal with the coronavirus pandemic. The president, during yesterday's White House briefing, called doctors, nurses, and other healthcare workers warriors and soldiers. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer says while he and the president don't agree about the lack of national oversight, they do agree on the idea of hazard pay.
Asking that he can do this by executive order, give hazard pay to all federal workers who are in harm's way. And then I think we should legislate it and require everybody to get it.
U.S. Navy officials say nearly 3,000 sailors aboard a U.S. aircraft carrier where the coronavirus has spread will be taken off the ship by tomorrow. Navy leaders say of the sailors assigned to the USS Theodore Roosevelt docked in Guam, fewer than 100 have tested positive for the virus. Countries with mandatory policies to vaccinate against tuberculosis register fewer coronavirus deaths than countries that don't have those policies. According to a preliminary study, countries that require citizens to get the BCG vaccine show a fewer number of confirmed cases. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg, Nathan.
All right, Michael, thank you. It's 5:09 on Wall Street. Time now for the Bloomberg Sports Update live to John Stashauer. Good morning, John.
Good morning, Nathan. For the first time since 1945, no tennis at Wimbledon. 8-time champion Roger Federer called the news devastating. The All England Club considered a postponement, but there are no lights at all but center court, and there's a lack of sunlight later in the summer. And it looks as if the British Open golf for later in July at Royal St. George's will also not take place, which means all 4 golf majors will be canceled or postponed. The Masters, PGA Championship, and U.S. Open at Wingfoot in Westchester are all hoping to reschedule for later in the year. Speaking of golf, there was that report that Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson would face off as they did in a $9 million winner-take-all in 2018. Now there's word others would be part of it, including Peyton Manning and Tom Brady playing golf. The proceeds would go to coronavirus relief. Nothing official yet. Nets general manager Sean Marks held a conference call, addressed a number of subjects, said his search for a new coach is on hold. He fired Kenny Atkinson shortly before the NBA stopped play. He also said that Kevin Durant and his 3 unnamed net teammates who tested positive for the virus are now symptom-free. 3 of the 4 always were. A report on how baseball is paying players while not playing. It's a flat rate, not their normal salaries. It's roughly $286,000 over 2 months for veterans. For someone like new Yankee ace Garrett Cole, that's 2% of his $36 million annual salary. And speaking of Yankee pitchers, James Paxton's back injury is said to be improving. He was to miss the first 2 months of the season anyway, so now He could be ready to go when or if baseball is ready to go. John Stashower, Bloomberg Sports.
Keep our fingers crossed. Thank you, John. Meantime, a former NFL safety lost his lawsuit claiming players with head injuries were denied crucial information on how to request disability benefits. Christopher Hudson, who retired in 2003, wanted to represent former players who sought disability benefits from the league plan, but were stymied by a lack of clarity on the process. A judge dismissed that lawsuit for the second and final time, saying the people running the plan had no affirmative duty to communicate to players how they interpreted disputed terms in the plan. S&P futures higher by 44 points. Dow futures up 392. This is Bloomberg.
Imagine being denied an apartment because of your religion, or your race, or because you have children, or a disability.
It's so wrong. Yes, but who has the power to stop this?
You do. Each of us has the power. The law is on your side. It's illegal for landlords to discriminate because of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, disability, or familial status. If you suspect that you have experienced housing discrimination, file a complaint with HUD immediately so we can investigate it. Fair housing is your right.
Use it.
To learn more, visit HUD.gov/fairhousing. That's HUD.gov/fairhousing. Or call 1-800-669-9777. 1-800-669-9777. A public service message from HUD in partnership with the National Fair Housing Alliance.
Why do hedge funds and other alternative managers rely on Pershing for a highly personalized experience? Mark Alderati, a managing director at BNY Mellon's Pershing and head of Prime Services, explains.
In today's fast-paced environment, where the only constants are change and volatility, you need a prime broker who's both steady and agile, focused on supporting your needs so that you can focus on growing your business and producing results. Exceptional client service and advocating for our clients is at the core of what we do. Our award-winning high-touch team is just one of the benefits of working with BNY Mellon. We help alternative investment managers create great experiences for their clients. Whether it's customized financing, securities lending solutions, platform access, or outsourced trading, BNY Mellon's Pershing is a prime broker who's committed to this business and dedicated to meeting your evolving demands.
To learn more about the unique and industry-leading solutions for hedge funds and other alternative managers, visit Pershing.com. Pershing LLC. Member FINRA, NYSE SIP.
Say you run into a competitor at an industry event. You get to chatting about business. How are you both doing? All pretty standard. Then someone mentions prices. Maybe you agree to stop undercutting each other. Still just business, right? Wrong. Coordinating prices with your competitors is called price fixing. It's cheating and illegal. And you could be facing big fines or even prison when you get caught. Search cheating or competing to check your business practices before we check them for you. Brought to you by the CMA, the Competition and Markets Authority.
Did you know your favorite radio stations are in your pocket? Yes, the TuneIn app lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio anywhere you want. To see all the stations broadcasting in your area, find the local radio section on the home screen. Keep it local with TuneIn.
The sports world is full of inspirational stories of heroic figures. It also has its fair share of shady characters. Aaron Hernandez, Donald Sterling, Bikram Choudhury, O.J. Simpson. For detailed retellings of some of the darkest sagas in sports, search sports documentaries on the TuneIn app.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
On this week's On the Media, we are awash in messages, but some messengers are more effective than others.
Ventilators, ventilators, ventilators. We need 30,000.
Meanwhile, some media outlets choose not to air the president's press briefings live, and media critics ponder what's the right balance between good information and all information. All that and more on this week's On the Media from WNYC. Listen to the On the Media podcast on TuneIn today.
Conversations from Bloomberg Television. Here's Taylor Riggs.
U.S. stocks and bond yields tumbled for a pessimistic start to the second quarter, but also falling along with rates, utilities, and real estate investment trusts. Joining us for some perspective is Boca Capital Partners founder and CIO, Kim Forrest. Kim, I'm desperate to get your analysis on today's price action because you saw return to normalcy with equities falling. You had treasuries catch a bid with yields falling. then you had a lot of those defensive sectors really underperform, like utilities, like real estate. Is there something under the hood more concerning to you?
Well, there sure is. I think when investors are looking at stocks, and they're buying stocks now, probably not the market. Nobody's lining up for, going on this ride. So they're kind of picking at stocks. The hard part is imagining when things are going to return to normal, not what's going to happen to that company. So I think that there are a lot of people on the sidelines, and that makes for some really, heart-stopping kind of drops in the market, because nobody really wants to catch that knife when they can't envision, a quality company being able to execute if they don't know when that could begin.
Hear more interviews like this one on Bloomberg Television, streaming live on Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg mobile app, or check your local cable listings. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. U.S. stock index futures on the rise this morning following another session of steep declines. And European stocks are edging up as investors catch their breath following a rough start to the second quarter for risk assets. Oil is surging after China unveiled plans to boost its reserves. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures up 44 points. Dow futures up 395. NASDAQ futures up 123. The DAX in Germany's up 0.2%. 10-year Treasury down 5/30 seconds, yield 0.59%, and the yield on the 2-year 0.21%. NYMEX crude oil is up 9.2%, up $1.87 at $22.18 a barrel. COMEX gold is up 0.7% or $10.70 at $16.0250 an ounce. The euro 1.0920 against the dollar. British pound 1.2422, and the yen is at 107.32. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Now here's Michael Barr with more on what's going on around the world. Michael, good morning.
Good morning, Karen. We're about to hit another grim milestone around the world concerning the COVID-19 pandemic. Bloomberg's John Tucker has more in this live report.
And Michael, the world will hit 1 million confirmed coronavirus cases this week. New York and New Jersey say deaths have doubled in 3 days. Fatalities in New York reached almost 2,000 and passed 350 in New Jersey. This is where the numbers of infected are rapidly increasing. The Pentagon is seeking to provide as many as 100,000 military-style body bags for potential civilian use, as the U.S. warns that deaths could soar in the coming weeks. John Tucker, Bloomberg Daybreak.
All right, John, thank you very much. President Trump is holding back on declaring a nationwide stay-at-home order. It comes as some governors are resisting imposing restrictions that Trump's top public health officials say are needed to slow the spread of the coronavirus. The president says the needs of some states are different than others. In tennis, Wimbledon has been canceled for the first time since World War II because of the coronavirus pandemic. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg, Nathan.
All right, Michael, thank you. It is 5:19 on Wall Street, and live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studios, this is Bloomberg Daybreak. Andrew Sheets is with us now, Chief Cross-Asset Strategist at Morgan Stanley. Andrew, good morning. We continue to hear about the awful toll the coronavirus pandemic is having around the world. In many cases, we can see that toll playing out right outside our windows. This morning, futures are on the rise. What do you see driving market sentiment right now?
Well, I do think that we're in a quite, difficult and choppy period over the next couple of weeks. As you mentioned, I think, unfortunately, we are going to see the U.S. cases continue to rise over the next several weeks. We're outside of the month-end rebalancing flow for stock markets, which is usually a helpful factor at the end of very bad months. And we're still, unsure, I think, as a market about exactly what earnings season is going to bring. This is going to be a very unusual earnings season. A lot of companies have withdrawn guidance. It's very hard to know where the consensus usually lies. So I do think markets are still facing a quite volatile period over the next couple of months. We do think for some markets, like investment-grade credit, investors are supposed to, though, move ahead of that uncertainty and start buying those markets now.
A couple weeks ago, you wrote that you see a market bottom forming. Are you still holding to that?
We do, yes, and I do think that the lows that we saw in markets in in kind of late March, around 2,200 on the S&P. We still think that those levels ultimately hold. I think there is some risk that we retest or do see some weakness over the next couple of weeks. But we do think ultimately that low holds, because that low was the result, we think, of the highest intensity of forced selling from the market, a lot of forced unwinding and deleveraging of the market. That force, we think, is now behind us. We still will have some outflows, we think, from retail investors over the next couple of weeks, but we don't think those flows will be as negative, as forceful as the flows that we had in mid-April.
What impact do you think... I'm sorry, what impact do you think the jobless claims numbers we get this morning will have? Obviously, we had a record number of unemployment filings last week, bracing for even more today. What will that do to the market sentiment?
Well, I do think with some of this data, it's quite notable, because sometimes I think it's hard to know exactly where the consensus lies around just how bad the economic impact is until we get the data. So obviously last week was quite interesting, because we had this record jobless claims number, record bad jobless claims number, and the market went up, which I do think was suggesting that expectations were low. Now we're entering at a higher level today, so we'll have to see how that goes. I think it will be a reminder that the economic impact is going to be severe. I think, again, that could, drive some continued volatility in markets over the next couple of weeks. But I think at the same time, our view is that when the data gets bad, and we're obviously getting some quite severe data, that actually usually marks closer to the end of a bear market, not the beginning of it. Recessions end bear markets, and we do think that markets will lead the economy, and it would not be unusual to see a bottoming process in March and April, even if the ultimate economic data is still going to get worse over the next couple of months.
So what are the indicators you're looking at specifically to determine whether it's a good time to get back into risk?
Well, I think there are a couple of things that we're focused on. I think the first is the volatility markets. I think we see over a number of cycles when a shock happens or when you have a severe negative development, oftentimes first the market needs to get comfortable with the level of uncertainty or the level of volatility, and then it can get comfortable with the level of price. And so over a number of different market corrections in bear markets, we've seen the same pattern where volatility peaks first, and then prices trough or kind of retest the lows later. And I think that pattern could still apply. So the fact that volatility markets, things like the VIX, have been better behaved, even as markets remain quite volatile, I think that is a good sign. And also, I do think that we're going to be watching the new issue markets quite closely. I think how credit behaves here will be very important for the equity markets. If you think back to 2009, there can be a very positive feedback loop. If companies can come to the market, show they can issue, even if they have to pay up to issue, that can start to generate a positive feedback loop in funding markets. And we'll obviously need to see if that's able to happen today. But our sense is we do think that investment grade market will begin that healing process this month.
Thanks, Andrew. Always good getting your insights. Thanks for being with us. Andrew Sheets is Chief Cross-Asset Strategist at Morgan Stanley. Again, the all-important jobless claims numbers come out at 8:30 a.m. Wall Street time, an hour ahead of the open on Wall Street. Ahead of all that, futures are moving higher. S&P futures, a gain of 46 points. That's up 1.9%. Dow futures are higher by 2% right now, a rise of 413 points. And NASDAQ futures are gaining by 130 points. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Wall Street kicked off the new quarter with a negative note amid growing worry about the impact of the coronavirus pandemic. The Dow, the S&P, the NASDAQ all fell just over 4% yesterday after President Donald Trump delivered a dire warning about the pandemic. President Trump said his administration is considering ways to compensate healthcare workers with supplemental hazard pay as they grapple with the outbreak. The call for additional pay has come amid reports that many hospital employees are caring for coronavirus patients without adequate protective gear, such as masks. Walmart will help the government source surgical gowns amid a shortage of personal protective equipment after President Trump called CEO Doug McMillon directly. The world's biggest retailer will tap its sprawling global supply chain to identify a company to make an undisclosed number of gowns. The U.S. stock futures this morning are pointing to a higher open for Wall Street, and NYMEX crude oil is also climbing back above $22 a barrel. Gina Cervetti, Bloomberg Radio.
Vatsal Shah is Senior Project Engineer at Mott MacDonald, a global engineering consultancy with more than 16,000 employees. He earned his PhD at New Jersey Institute of Technology, and as an adjunct professor, is helping NJIT students explore emerging technologies.
My focus is renewable markets, emerging technologies, the idea of floating cities. What are we doing to develop that? What will happen to the city on the water? Well, you're going to have waves hitting it. You're going to have solar. How are you going to develop plants? How are you going to develop vegetation and farming? That sort of thought process happens at NJIT. We actually plan out what will the city look like. How do we develop that? So in 10 years, we're actually ready to take on those challenges when we have our first development in the water. NJIT also has been doing a lot of work in self-healing materials, so taking the polymers and the new material that we have in our material sciences departments and putting them into things like concrete, things like steel, reinforcing our soil.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
Did you know that players of People's Postcode Lottery have raised over £500 million for charities and good causes? They've also won £47 million in prizes so far this year, and it could be your postcode next. Visit postcodelottery.co.uk/radio before midnight on the 23rd of April to play in the May draws. PPL managed lotteries on behalf of good causes. 16 plus, conditions apply, play responsibly.
This is a vital update from the government about coronavirus. To help save lives, stay at home. Anyone can spread coronavirus. Only leave your home for the following reasons: to shop for basic necessities, to pick up medicine or to provide care to those who need it, to exercise once a day, alone or with members of your household. Only travel to work when you absolutely cannot work from home. If you have to go out for any of these reasons, always stay 2 meters apart. Do not meet others outside your household, even friends and family. Stay home. Protect the NHS. Save lives.
London. Find Unlimited is here to brighten your day. Vodafone and Samsung are giving you the chance to win one of thousands of tech prizes all over the city, including the new Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra 5G. Play from wherever you are. When we say the word, look for the Vodafone Unlimited symbol near you for your chance to win. Register now at findunlimited.co.uk.
The football boots that will help her score her first hat-trick. The tech that keeps you connected. The cozy jumpers that are perfect for snuggling up together. With a choice of ways to pay, you can make the most of family time. You can say yes when it matters most at very.co.uk. Goods and services provided by Shop Direct Home Shopping Limited. Credit provided by Shop Direct Finance Company Limited.
Want to know a quick, easy way to see if your favorite podcasts have a new episode available? Just go to the home screen on your TuneIn app and see the latest editions under the Your New Episode section. Happy listening.
The sports world is full of inspirational stories of heroic figures. It also has its fair share of shady characters. For detailed retellings of the darkest sagas in sports, explore TuneIn's documentary podcasts, like 30 for 30's The Sterling Affairs, about the scandalous life and times of the former Clippers owner, Donald Sterling, and Gladiator, which follows Aaron Hernandez's transformation from Super Bowl star to convicted murderer. For these and more, search sports documentaries on the TuneIn app.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Daybreak.
And it's 5:30 on Wall Street. Good morning. I'm Nathan Hager.
And I'm Karen Moscow. We're just about 4 hours away from the opening of U.S. trading. Let's get you up to date on the news you need to know at this hour. U.S. futures are rebounding from yesterday's sell-off as the coronavirus outbreak continues to spread.
Difficult days are ahead for our nation. We're going to have a couple of weeks starting pretty much now, but especially a few days from now that are going to be horrific.
The Pentagon is looking to provide as many as 100,000 military body bags for potential civilian casualties. Meantime, President Trump is weighing whether to stop flights from New York and other cities where the outbreak is most concentrated.
That is a calculation that we're looking at right now. We're looking at it very strongly.
No word on which cities would be affected or what the scale of any restrictions would be.
Well, U.S. cases of COVID-19 now number 216,000 as deaths approach the 5,000 mark. And in New York alone, fatalities are near 2,000. For the very latest, we're joined live by Bloomberg's John Tucker in New York. John?
Good morning, Nathan. Deaths in New York and New Jersey have doubled in 3 days. New York State now has 83,000 reported cases. In New York City, at least 1 in every 200 people is infected. And across the country, 1 in every 1,500 has the virus. Worldwide, global infections are likely to reach 1 million by the weekend. In New York, I'm John Tucker, Bloomberg Daybreak.
All right, John, thank you. In New Jersey, cases now number more than 22,350 deaths so far, and we spoke with Governor Phil Murphy.
We're part of Metro New York, so we're living the same reality that New York City is. We're sort of all in this together. We're literally telling people, stay home, stay away from other people, no gatherings, period, and if you violate that, you will pay a big price.
Governor Murphy warns New Jersey will soon need more space to store dead bodies. He says that they may resort to using refrigerated trucks to house the deceased.
The pandemic continues to hit the economy hard, and today we get fresh numbers on Americans lining up for unemployment benefits. Forecasts call for weekly jobless claims numbering 3.7 million. Here with more is Bloomberg's Vinny Del Giudice.
Bloomberg Economics says the sharp increase in jobless claims implies an April unemployment rate approaching 5.5%. In comments this week, the president of the Federal Reserve Bank of Cleveland, Loretta Mester, said unemployment is poised to eventually top 10%, the peak of the last recession in October 2009. Vinny Del Giudice, Bloomberg Daybreak.
All right, Vinny, thank you. S&P futures are higher. They're up 46 points this morning. Dow futures up 420 and NASDAQ futures up 128. 10-year Treasury down 3/30 seconds, yield 0.59%, and the yield on the 2-year 0.21%. The euro 1.0933 against the dollar. Straight ahead, we have the latest world and national news, and this is Bloomberg.
All right, Karen, thank you. It's 5:33 on Wall Street. Let's get that latest world and national news now from Bloomberg's Michael Barr. Michael?
Thank you very much, Nathan. Playgrounds in New York City, packed in recent days, are now off limits. Governor Cuomo has ordered all playgrounds in the city to be shut down as the state's death toll from its COVID-19 outbreak is hovering around 2,000. Many of those deaths, more than 1,300, are in New York City. New York Mayor Bill de Blasio.
We have continued to get a very substantial supply of ventilators, but we still need 400 more to be in place by Sunday to prepare us for the week ahead.
Meanwhile, there is a grim guideline for EMS crews in the city. They are now told cardiac patients who cannot be resuscitated in the field must be declared dead. Mayo Clinic's Dr. Vinayak Kumar says the new order is intended to protect healthcare workers.
When you're doing the CPR itself, the patient, you're pushing really hard on a person's chest. They're expelling some air in the process as well. So if they are COVID patients, then they'll be spreading it all around.
Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti is now saying that everybody in his city should wear masks when going out. Bloomberg's Ed Baxter has the story.
The mayor says residents should not use medical-grade masks, which are in short supply and are needed by healthcare workers and first responders. Now, he says people who are performing essential tasks such as food shopping should wear homemade, non-medical face coverings or even bandanas, as people in other countries hard hit by the COVID-19 virus have done. Garcetti says the look would be surreal, but people will have to get used to it. He also said people should still stay at home as much as possible. In San Francisco, I'm Ed Baxter, Bloomberg Daybreak.
Michigan has the 4th most cases of coronavirus in the U.S. Governor Gretchen Whitmer warns some state hospitals are already at capacity with a surge of patients still to come.
We know we've got too little PPE. We have too few hospital beds. We definitely have too few ventilators. And we're worried about our frontline responders, our nurses and our respiratory therapists and our doctors.
Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg. Nathan.
All right, Michael, thank you. 5:35 on Wall Street. Time for the Bloomberg Sports Update, though these days it's the Bloomberg Sports Cancellations Update. Here's John Stashower. Good morning, John.
Yeah, Nathan, it's like school cancellations. The first Wimbledon was in 1877. They didn't play during either of the World Wars, but this will be the first peacetime cancellation. So no French Open, no Wimbledon. The U.S. Open is, as of now, on for late August in New York. The indoor facility at the Billie Jean King Tennis Center right now is being used as a medical facility. But the UK getting hit hard by the virus, and there's word from Golf Digest that the British Open golfer later in July will also not take place. Cubs and Cardinals were supposed to play 2 games in mid-June in London, like the Yankees and Red Sox did last year. Those games are off. MLB had previously scrapped April games in Mexico City and San Juan. Mets and Marlins were going to play there. Nets GM Sean Marks says the entire team free of coronavirus symptoms. They completed a 2-week quarantine. Kevin Durant and 3 Brooklyn teammates had tested positive. 3 of the 4 never showed symptoms. When NFL free agency began, the Giants were said to be in pursuit of pass rusher Jadeveon Clowney. Maybe they will be again now that Clowney has reportedly lowered his asking price. He wanted $20 million a year. Now it's down to a mere $17 or $18 million. April 2nd, this day in sports history, 1995, the baseball strike ended. It lasted a record 232 days and wiped out the 94 World Series. It ended with a ruling by Judge Sonia Sotomayor. At issue was the owner's desire to create a salary cap. 25 years later, they still don't have one. John Stashower, Bloomberg Sports.
All right, John, thanks. 5:37 on Wall Street, and the coronavirus pandemic continues to hit communities and the economy hard, with lives everywhere changed and homes and businesses all over the country. For a company the size of Bank of America, the shift is dramatic. Bloomberg's David Weston sat down for a conversation with Bank of America CEO Brian Moynihan to discuss the impact. Let's listen in now.
So, Brian, thank you so much for joining us. This is an economic crisis, but I know you would be the first to say it is first and foremost a personal human crisis. Give us your sense of the overall crisis we're facing.
It's clear it's a healthcare crisis. There's this virus out there that we're all in a war, and everybody in the world has one common enemy, and that's to win the war against this virus. And now that is a humanitarian crisis, and that there's people that are hit by it and sick, and we got to make sure they're taken care of it. And then we got to take care of the rest of society so they don't get it, which means how you run your company, how you think about how you deploy your resources and stuff has changed dramatically over the last few weeks. Have we gone into social distancing, all to stop the virus and win the war on that? When we win that, the economic impact will be mitigated, and that's what you could see in the economy before it hit us, and that's what we expect to see in the economy after it hits us.
So how have you reordered your priorities at Bank of America? You just said that if you run a company, you have to reorder your priorities for this particular crisis. Give us an example of how you're reordering Bank of America's priorities.
We took a quick look and said, in the end of the day, our response has to be team-centric. In other words, protect our team, get our team in a position so they can support the customers, even if they're working from home. And it has to be client-centric, what we do for our customers, whether commercial customers or consumer customers, and ultimately, how do we help society? So if you think about the team, the number one issue was how can you do all the work that we do with this great team working every day across this wonderful platform, but do it in a way that's never been contemplated, with 150,000 teammates went from working in the office to working from home across 4 or 5 weeks.
Some economists are talking about now the possibility of demand destruction, being permanent reduction in consumption because of this crisis. As you look at it, is there a risk of that? How large a risk is there?
At the end of the day, one of the things that is great is if you think about the throughput of the U.S. economy, with the amount of stimulus, the amount of fiscal support that's coming, the amount of monetary support, if you look at economists with their 25% down in the second quarter and then working their way out, the sheer amount of dollars netted on $5 trillion quarterly economy, $20 trillion a year, is overwhelmed by the amount of support coming in the markets. All that is geared to getting us out the other side of this faster. There was no structural issues in the economy. It's a healthcare crisis, and I think if we mitigate that healthcare crisis, you will see on the other side of this,
a rebound, and that's what our economists say. So as people have adjusted their second quarter down more due to the unemployment and new claims last week, what people are guessing will happen this week, there'll be a deeper downdraft. But most of the economists that I see and our internal economists believe on the other side is a reversion back to where the economy almost gets back to the same size, at some time in next year that it was prior to this, which is a pretty fast turnaround. And so, I think that you're not changing anything fundamentally about the business cycle, about what's going on. You're saying if you get by this virus, it works.
And that's Bank of America CEO Brian Moynihan speaking with Bloomberg's David Weston. You can catch more of that conversation online at Bloomberg.com. Futures moving higher after yesterday's plunge. S&P futures gaining 40 points at the moment. Dow futures up 372. And NASDAQ futures are higher by 113 points. You're listening to Bloomberg Daybreak.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
Elite advisory firms rely on BNY Mellon's Pershing to meet the needs of their most complex clients. Karen Novak, Chief Operating Officer at Pershing Advisor Solutions, explains how.
At BNY Mellon's Pershing, we bring customized insights and strategies to help you grow your advisory business and stay on the leading edge. We can support the needs of your most sophisticated clients with a full range of investment and wealth management solutions, from access to private banking to consolidated bank and brokerage custody. Learn why so many of the largest advisory firms turn to us for the financial strength and high-touch service that BNY Mellon's Pershing can provide. Are you well positioned to stand out from your competition?
Learn more at Pershing.com or call 800-445-4467. Brokerage custody provided by Pershing LLC and other services provided by Pershing Advisor Solutions LLC. Both members of FINRA and SIPC. Private banking and bank custody provided by BNY Mellon NA, member FDIC.
This is a vital update from the government about coronavirus. To help save lives, stay at home. Anyone can spread coronavirus. Only leave your home for the following reasons: to shop for basic necessities, to pick up medicine or to provide care to those who need it, to exercise once a day, alone or with members of your household. Only travel to work when you absolutely cannot work from home. If you have to go out for any of these reasons, always stay 2 meters apart. Do not meet others outside your household, even friends and family. Stay home. Protect the NHS. Save lives.
It can be convincing when someone calls you pretending to be your bank, especially when they say your money is at risk and you should transfer your funds into a safe account. Well, don't be fooled. At Lloyds Bank, we will never call and ask you to move your money into another account. We believe nothing is more important than our customers' trust. And together, we can keep your money safe. Lloyds Bank, by your side.
Like what you're listening to? Want to make getting back to it easier? Use the favorite button to keep track of the stations and podcasts you love on TuneIn. Just tap or click the heart icon to add it to your favorites. Then find all your go-to audio under the Favorites tab. Pretty easy, right?
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
TuneIn makes it easy to be a part of the conversation. Just make sure push notifications are enabled to hear about breaking news and trending topics from around the sports world. You'll also get custom recommendations of podcasts and radio stations covering the sports and teams you care about.
On this week's On the Media, we are awash in messages, but some messengers are more effective than others.
Ventilators, ventilators, ventilators. We need 30,000.
Meanwhile, some media outlets choose not to air the president's press briefings live, and media critics ponder what's the right balance between good information and all information. All that and more on this week's On the Media from WNYC. Listen to the On the Media podcast on TuneIn today.
24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok on Twitter. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in over 120 countries. This is Bloomberg Radio. Now, a global news update.
Special report, coronavirus update. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer calling on President Trump to give hazard pay to those out in the workplace.
He can do this by executive order, give hazard pay to all federal workers who are in harm's way. And then I think we should legislate it and require everybody to get it.
A cruise ship with coronavirus patients on board is being halted from docking in Florida.
Right now, they are begging to dock here, but the Florida governor says he's not willing to give up hospital beds here in Florida for those people on board. In fact, his quote was, "You can't just dump foreigners or foreign nationals here in South Florida."
There's Randy Kaye. U.S. Navy officials say nearly 3,000 sailors aboard the USS Theodore Roosevelt, now docked in Guam, will be taken off the ship as military leaders struggle to quarantine crew members in the face of the outbreak. Moving sailors into hotel rooms is being discussed. I'm John Trout.
Tom Keene and Jonathan Farrell.
Is that good for American finance?
What is happening with the headcount?
Right, where it counts. Bloomberg Surveillance, weekday mornings at 7 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio. Bloomberg, the world is listening. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. U.S. stock index futures on the rise following another session of steep declines, and European shares are edging up as investors catch their breath following a rough start to the second quarter for risk assets. Oil is surging. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures up about 38 points. Dow futures up 341 and NASDAQ futures up 90. The DAX in Germany's up 0.1%. 10-year Treasury down 2/30 seconds, yield 0.58%. The yield on the 2-year 0.21%. NYMEX crude oil is up 9.33%, up $1.90 to $22.21 a barrel. COMEX gold is up 0.7% or $11.30 at $16.0270 an ounce. The euro 1.0934 against the dollar. The yen is at 107.27. British pound is at 1.2443, and the VIX is at 53.57. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Now here's Michael Barr with more on what's going on around the world. Michael.
Thank you very much, Karen. New York is mobilizing thousands of volunteers to help deal with an outbreak that caused the statewide death toll from the coronavirus to double in 72 hours, now approaching 2,000. Today, Spain reported a record 950 deaths in one day, taking the death toll past 10,000. In Italy, with over 13,000 dead, the most of any country, morgues have overflowed with bodies and caskets are piling up in churches. U.S. Navy officials say nearly 3,000 sailors aboard a U.S. aircraft carrier where the coronavirus has spread will be taken off the ship by tomorrow as military leaders struggle to quarantine crew members in the face of an outbreak. The USS Theodore Roosevelt is now docked in Guam. In tennis, Wimbledon has been canceled for the first time since World War II because of the coronavirus pandemic. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg.
Bloomberg Opinion, informed perspectives, and expert data-driven commentary on breaking news.
It is now 5:49 on Wall Street. Time to check in with Bloomberg Opinion. Good morning, I'm John Tucker. This is Bloomberg Daybreak. We are joined live now by David Powell, our senior Euro area economist, who has a piece under Bloomberg Opinion today. David, good morning. Your piece this morning reads, Italy's economy faces implosion as virus spreads. Now, everybody's primary concern, of course, has to be health and safety, but what awaits us on the other side? Going into this crisis, Italy wasn't exactly on solid ground, was it?
No, it wasn't. And unfortunately, Italy is probably going to be the hardest hit of all the economies in Europe, and that's largely because the containment measures that shut down the economy began there first. And as you mentioned, Italy was also the least able to handle this hit, being one of the weakest economies in Europe going into this because it had never fully recovered from the euro crisis a few years ago.
Well, this is a story that has more than just a few elements. There is the debt picture, for one, and then the political front, both being fragile, and I think that's being kind. Let's start with the debt picture. What was that going in? What is it now?
Right. Well, Italy has one of the largest debt to GDP ratios in the world, and that's been a problem for years. Its European partners have tried to tell Italy to cut the budget a bit more, and that's been an ongoing fight. And this will obviously add to the debt of the country. The ECB has already done a lot to address this problem, and this is not something that's going to explode tomorrow. The ECB announced its pandemic purchase program that has a lot of ammunition behind it. But really, the big risk here would be if investors were to lose faith in Italy's ability to manage that huge pile of government debt, with the economy weakening so sharply, even with the help of European institutions. We're not there, but that is always a risk that people will be looking at in the days and weeks ahead.
As far as the political front, what's happening there?
Well, the political situation has been fragile in Italy for quite some time. Last summer, the government fell, and there was a new coalition that came to power. But the other political party in Italy, the Populist Party that had to leave the coalition, remains very popular in Italy, and that fragility, of course, will be tried by the extreme crisis that the country is facing right now. And the last thing, of course, Italy needs is for the government to fall. As we saw when that happened, even in normal times, it weakened the economy considerably as consumers put off spending decisions and businesses put off spending decisions.
Is there any indication at this point that there could be another government in Italy?
We don't have any indication of that right now. There doesn't seem to be any calls for an election or anything like that. But it's something, once again, to keep your eye on. If the people of Italy feel that the reaction of the government hasn't been great.
30 seconds. Does Italy's fiscal predicament give rise eventually to tensions in the Eurozone bloc?
Yes, we've seen them already with the Europeans arguing over Euro bonds.
Okay, David, thanks a lot. Bloomberg senior Euro area economist David Powell joining us on the phone today. You can read more on these and other stories from Bloomberg Opinion at Bloomberg.com/opinion and on the terminal by typing OPIN GO. Karen.
John Tucker, thank you. It is 5:52 on Wall Street. It's time for the Bloomberg Law Report. It's brought to you by American Arbitration Association. Business disputes are inevitable. Resolve faster with the American Arbitration Association, the global leader in alternative dispute resolution for over 90 years. More at adr.org. Let's get to the legal stories we're watching this morning from Bloomberg's Jeff Bellinger.
White House coronavirus coordinator Dr. Deborah Birx is calling on universities to develop tests that could screen an entire health system for COVID-19 antibodies, and she wants the tests quickly. A federal court ruled that realistic depictions of military vehicles in Activision Blizzard's Call of Duty video games did not infringe on a contractor's Humvee trademark rights. And Polaris Industries defeated an attempt to certify a lawsuit over ATV defects as a class action.
Bloomberg Law. Everything you need on one legal research platform. Guidance, analysis, and Bloomberg Market Intelligence. Find out more at BloombergLaw.com.
And now another legal item we're watching related to the coronavirus outbreak. A global pause in business is pushing some companies to the brink of failure, and that has bankruptcy attorneys' phones ringing off the hook. For more on the situation, Bloomberg's June Grasso speaks to Edward Morrison, a professor at Columbia Law School.
For some businesses in the hardest hit sectors, is reorganization even going to be possible? Let's say you own a chain of hotels. Can you really sell off some hotels or assets to reorganize at this time?
Well, I think that there are many ways to conduct a bankruptcy, and bankruptcy doesn't necessarily require selling off assets. It's true that many bankruptcies do. Many firms enter bankruptcy and slim themselves. But these are typically firms that have overexpanded, taken on too much debt, opened too many outlets, too many hotels, and realizing that they need to reduce their scale, go back to their core competencies, and become a smaller, leaner, more efficient business. That's one type of bankruptcy, but there are many other kinds of bankruptcies you can envision. Chapter 11 is the style of bankruptcy most corporations use, and it's incredibly flexible and adaptable. Another kind of bankruptcy is one that doesn't involve any asset sales. It could be a firm that enters bankruptcy, uses bankruptcy as a holding station, and so you can have a business that enters bankruptcy and comes out looking pretty much the same to consumers. Look at the airlines. United Airlines went in, went out. For many consumers, it wasn't a recognizably different company. General Motors went in, came out, still selling Silverados. And so I think that though many companies may be in a position where it's very difficult to liquidate their assets in the current environment, Chapter 11 doesn't require that to happen. Chapter 11 just requires that the firm and its creditors reach a deal that's in the mutual interest of everybody.
On that point, though, will there be problems inducing a bankruptcy lender to make a loan in these times?
Yes. You put your finger on, I think, one of the most difficult features of the current environment. We're in an environment where asset values have fallen. A hotel might enter bankruptcy and find very few or no buyers for its assets. But that kind of world makes no one happy. Creditors don't like that. The firm doesn't like that. The shareholders don't like that. No creditor wants to be in a bankruptcy where I'm getting paid very little because we're selling assets at fire sale prices. Nobody wants that. Everybody would prefer a reorganization of the company that keeps all the assets together to weather the storm. But what Chapter 11 requires is blood flow, and cash is the blood flow. It keeps the process alive. To have a bankruptcy process, you have to have the cash that allows for you to pay professional fees, your workers. So the firm is entering bankruptcy. It wants to reorganize itself, but it needs cash. It needs new loans. How is it going to get that? And as you point out, in the current environment where banks are reluctant to extend loans, it can be very difficult.
And that's Columbia Law School professor Edward Morrison speaking with Bloomberg's June Grasso. Catch more of that interview plus analysis of the latest legal news by subscribing to the Bloomberg Law Podcast or downloading the show at Bloomberg.com/podcasts. And attorneys can find exceptional legal research and business development tools at BloombergLaw.com. Right now, futures this morning are higher with S&P futures up 41 points, Dow futures up 377, and NASDAQ futures up 99. The DAX in Germany's up 0.25%. 10-year Treasury down 3/32, yield 0.59%. The yield on the 2-year 0.21%. NYMEX crude oil is up 9.6%, up $1.94 to $22.25 a barrel. And COMEX gold is up 0.7% or $11.70 at $16.0310 an ounce. The euro 1.0928 against the dollar, and the yen is at 107.34. And Bloomberg Daybreak continues. This is Bloomberg.
I used to be a bit of a rubbish sleeper. I'd toss and turn all night. Somehow I could never find the comfy bit of the mattress. It was a proper nightmare. That's what brought me here. Testing mattresses in the Witch Test Lab. We use a custom-made barrel rolling machine to simulate a decade's worth of use. And the mattresses that perform best are the only ones we recommend for your bedroom. Witch.co.uk. Our tests find you the best.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
It's TuneIn Sports on this day, April 2nd, 2019. OKC guard Russell Westbrook becomes the second player in NBA history to have 20 points, 20 rebounds, and 20 assists in a game.
I heard it, 20 rebounds. There it is. 20 bad. First time since 1968. And Wilt Chamberlain.
To listen to conversations breaking down the moments just like this, search sports to be part of the discussion on TuneIn.
Like what you're listening to? Want to make getting back to it easier? Use the favorite button to keep track of the stations and podcasts you love on TuneIn. Just tap or click the heart icon to add it to your favorites. Then find all your go-to audio under the Favorites tab. Pretty easy, right?
The financial capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio.
Live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studios, this is Bloomberg Daybreak for Thursday, April 2nd, 2020. Coming up this hour.
COVID-19 cases in the U.S. surged past 200,000 as deaths in New York and New Jersey doubled in just 3 days.
Difficult days are ahead for our nation. We're going to have a couple of weeks that are going to be horrific.
U.S. deaths near 5,000 as global infections approach 1 million.
President Trump says he's looking at hazard pay for healthcare workers during the coronavirus pandemic. Plus, New York's mayor calls for more ventilators. I'm Michael Barr. More ahead.
I'm John Stashower in sports. The Brooklyn Nets players who tested positive are now free of coronavirus symptoms. The latest sporting event to be canceled was Wimbledon.
That's all straight ahead on Bloomberg Daybreak. On Bloomberg 1130 New York, Bloomberg 99.1 Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 106.1 Boston, Bloomberg 960 San Francisco, Sirius XM 119, and around the world on BloombergRadio.com and via the Bloomberg Business app.
Good morning, I'm Nathan Hager.
And I'm Karen Moscow, and U.S. futures are rebounding from yesterday's 4% loss for stocks. We're coming up to 6:01 on Wall Street, and we check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. Right now, S&P futures are up 34 points, Dow futures up 322, and NASDAQ futures up 73. The DAX in Germany is little change. So is the FTSE 100, and the CAC in Paris up about 0.3%. 10-year Treasury down 3/32, yield 0.59%. The yield on the 2-year 0.21%. NYMEX crude oil is up 9.25%, up $1.89 to $22.19 a barrel. COMEX gold is up 0.8% or $12.70 at $16.0380 an ounce. The euro 1.0935 against the dollar. The yen 107.30. Nathan.
And Karen, we begin with more grim rhetoric from the White House.
Difficult days are ahead for our nation. We're going to have a couple of weeks starting pretty much now, but especially a few days from now, that are going to be horrific.
And the Pentagon is looking to provide as many as 100,000 military body bags for potential casualties. Meantime, President Trump is considering stopping flights from New York and other cities where the outbreak is most concentrated.
That is a calculation that we're looking at right now. We're looking at it very strongly.
No word on which cities would be affected or what the scale of any restrictions would be. The president says he's wary of any move that would further harm the airline industry.
The president also fielded questions on China at last night's briefing. The press conference came hours after a Bloomberg News exclusive showing Beijing's numbers on the coronavirus outbreak are fake.
Their numbers seem to be a little bit on the light side, and I'm being nice when I say that, relative to what we witnessed and what was reported.
U.S. intelligence officials tell Bloomberg News a classified report shows China concealed the extent of the outbreak in its country. Sources say Beijing's public reporting on cases and deaths is intentionally incomplete. This morning, China is refuting that report. It says the government acted openly and transparently, and the report is an attempt to shift blame.
And we get more insight on the White House response to the virus today when we speak with Mike Pence. Tune in for an interview with the Vice President of the United States at noon Wall Street time on both Bloomberg Radio and television.
Meantime, cases of COVID-19 in the U.S. now number 216,000 as deaths approach the 5,000 mark. In New York alone, fatalities are nearing 2,000. For the very latest, we're joined live by Bloomberg's John Tucker in New York. John, good morning.
Good morning, Karen. Deaths in New York and New Jersey have doubled in 3 days, and the outbreak in the region will likely be longer than initial estimates. That's according to New York Governor Andrew Cuomo.
What we're looking at now is the apex, top of the curve, roughly at the end of April, which means another month of this.
New York State has 83,000 reported cases of the virus. In New York City, at least 1 in every 200 people is infected. Across the country, about 1 in every 1,500 has the virus. In New York, I'm John Tucker, Bloomberg Daybreak.
All right, John, thanks. And in New Jersey, cases now number more than 22,000. The state reported 3,500 new infections yesterday, though that doesn't capture the full extent of the outbreak. Only those with symptoms are being tested. We spoke with New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy.
The most aggressive set of steps we took were a week ago Saturday.
Saturday, so that's 11 days ago. Some of these testing results that we're getting were from specimens that were collected 8 to 10 days ago. So we're not going to have a real handle on the impact of the very aggressive social distancing probably for another week or so.
Governor Murphy warns New Jersey will soon need more space to store dead bodies. He says they may resort to using refrigerated trucks to house the deceased.
California is third for infections across the country, closing in on 10,000 cases, and the number of intensive care patients is increasing across the state. We get the very latest from Bloomberg's Ed Baxter in San Francisco.
Governor Gavin Newsom says day to day there has been an over 16% increase, but he says the state is getting close to meeting the needs.
We're preparing for a 2/3 increase in our hospital bed capacity in this state.
He says the surge is still coming in the next several weeks, but that he very much hopes that the health system can be prepared. In San Francisco, I'm Ed Baxter, Bloomberg Daybreak.
All right, Ed, thank you. And the pandemic continues to ravage the economy. Today, we get fresh numbers on Americans lining up for unemployment benefits with data on weekly jobless claims. Here with more is Bloomberg economics correspondent Michael McKee.
Look for a record number of Americans filing for unemployment benefits for a second week. Last week saw almost 3.3 million. The darkest prediction for this week from economists is for that to double. Given the speed with which the coronavirus has hit the economy, the claims release is seen as perhaps the most timely report on what's happening in the labor market. Friday's jobs report, on the other hand, will only show the level of payrolls through the week of March 12th before state economies began to shut down. Michael McKee, Bloomberg Daybreak.
Michael, thank you. So how high will unemployment go? We asked Federal Reserve Bank of Boston President Eric Rosengren.
It's quite likely by the end of this quarter that we'll see an unemployment rate that's probably going to be north of 10%.
The Fed has slashed interest rates, boosted its bond buying program, and announced emergency lending measures. Now it's working on a new loan program for small and medium-sized businesses, but it may be weeks until that help arrives.
The Main Street facility is still in the design phase. It's a complicated facility to appropriately scope, so I think it's still going to be another couple of weeks.
And there could be more help on the way. Boston Fed President Eric Rosengren said there's still room for the central bank and Congress to stem the fallout from the coronavirus outbreak. Again, futures this morning are on the rise. S&P futures up 37 points, Dow futures up 339, and NASDAQ futures up 78. The 10-year Treasury is down 2/30 seconds, yield 0.58%. And straight ahead, we have the latest world and national news, and this is Bloomberg.
All right, Karen, thank you. 6:07 on Wall Street, and Michael Barr has more on the toll of the coronavirus here and around the world this morning. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Nathan. The number of coronavirus deaths in New York State more than doubled in 72 hours, approaching 2,000. In New York City, Mayor Bill de Blasio says hospitals still need critical care.